Hey guys, John here. Welcome back for RPG A Day 2024. This is a twofer. It is day 23, but I didn't get to make my episode for day 22, so I'm going to cover day 22 and day 23 in the same video really quickly. Day 20, yesterday, day 22's prompt was notable NPC, and there are a lot of NPC, non-player characters. There are a lot of NPCs. No matter what game you play, especially if a game is tied to a specific setting, there are NPCs to help you flesh out the world and provide quests and things for the players to do. Off the top of my excuse me, off the top of my head, I'm thinking of like in the Beckme Mystara setting, like Duke Stefan in the Grand Duchy of Karamikos. This kind of Duke who's kind of in charge of this new kingdom, this new domain, and needs adventurers to go out and help keep the humanoid hordes back. You know, settle his lands, settle disputes as well. But he's also kind of naive. He lets his cousin Baron von Hendrix get away with some unsavory things, including the slave trade in his domain, even though that's illegal. So there's kind of this, he's this new ruler, brave, confident warrior, but now he seems a bit more naive on the domestic side of things, especially when it regards his family. I also think of, here I go, Delta Green's The Labyrinth has a plethora of NPCs for your agents to find, to encounter them through these various organizations detailed in the book, and what their involvement with the unnatural and, by extension, Delta Green does to a person. Really playing that up as kind of a foil for the players and their own journey within the game story. Almost, it adds that little element. In a lot of cases, it adds that element of cautionary tale, particularly with the character Joe Daunt in that book. He's kind of this retired Atlanta detective centered around a missing child case. It's really good. I won't spoil any more. You guys should go read The Labyrinth. And just go read that book, as I keep saying, if you want to learn more. But ultimately, what makes a good NPC is aesthetic and goals. What role does the NPC fill in the story? And I'm talking about long-term story characters, not the innkeeper that they're friends with. That's you can name him Bob, and they might like Bob, and you can use Bob to facilitate things, but more other NPCs that are going to be a bit more recurring. It requires a lot of the same work you would do for a player character. Develop what their mannerisms are, their aesthetics, how they dress, or like what role. A lot of my NPCs tend to be film noir type characters. I write a lot of femme fatales. It says a lot about me as a person. But on that same token, another thing about NPCs is what are their goals? Good NPCs, notable NPCs, have a goal. They either belong to some sort of organization or they're working on their own, and they have a goal. It could be stealing jewels. It could be getting money, stealing jewels. It could be take over the world. It could be just to sow chaos. They have some sort of goal that somehow interacts with the player characters. I'm not the best at this. Or at least I can give my NPCs goals a lot of the times, but I don't always make that apparent in roleplay. A situation where I kind of failed at it, I had in my Fate game, my Flash Gordon style game. I had a character named Prince Helios. He's very much the Prince Baron of this world. He's, this dethroned prince from the Star Empire, from the Star Emperor. He's by Ming the Merciless. And he's running a resistance cell to retake his kingdom. In my game, in the kind of the weak parts, I was trying to sell it that he's very honest, he's very good. He also is he will do some shady things to get what he wants. He's not above hiring spies and saboteurs and criminals. He wants to retake his throne. He wants it. He wants it now. So I didn't play that off well in my game initially, and he kind of came off as one note. But it happens. It's a balancing act. It worked. Another NPC from that game that worked really well didn't necessarily have a goal in mind, but it was N33D 1L 13. This android tailor they met in the Imperial City. And he was they needed clothes for this gala they were attending, and the players needed clothes for this gala they were attending. And he just, because he was an automaton, he was, this is interesting. And, the one player took interest in how he worked. And, that's interesting, kind of studying diagrams. And they were kind of chatting up with him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, he used to be a tailor for the nobles and for the imperial court, but they kind of threw him out because he was an android." And kind of when they got their costumes, he goes, "Oh, this will knock their socks off and they'll totally blow them away." So it kind of became, them wearing his clothes at the gala became a statement piece. For kind of the social, the established social order, which was kind of cool. Like I said, I didn't intend that necessarily, but it happens. This is the other thing too. Goals and for NPCs, stuff like that can just happen. Can happen emergently. Can happen during play. But yeah, two things about notable NPCs. Really, the most important thing is they have to have a goal, and then translating that goal into what the NPC is willing to do for that. Much like players, right? Like how we would challenge players is how you would, you give them the power at what cost? Well, what are they willing to do to acquire power, and what are they willing to do with their power now that they have it? It's the same thing for NPCs. What are they willing to do for this? What are they going to do when they get it? So, and then, once again, long-form campaign stuff, but still important stuff. Another NPC that I'm just now thinking of was in my No War game. I keep talking a lot about that, but they had a benefactor, Charles Diamond. He was basically this old grizzled detective who now, by the time of the game in the 80s, was this, he was trying to run this, trying to keep the lights on at this detective agency, hiring all these new investigators to go out and, do the things. And he was very much old school, very much nuts and bolts. But then it turned out in the last hour, they came to help the PCs take on the one Nazi stronghold they were attacking, and with his old war buddies, there were a couple of the other NPCs that they had met. So there was some really good, and that kind of shocked the players too. Oh, they've got this. Another one in that game was Miss Della Kim, who was Mr. Diamond's young law student secretary, who she was very much like the Moneypenny of the game, who was like, yeah, I got this, I got that, But they would have banter with her. They would, and they also started caring about her a bit too, because her goal was to be a lawyer, to take the LSAT and kind of run the company a bit, but it helped flush out the world. This is the thing in more contemporary based genres and games. You have to flesh out the world a bit more, and sometimes you may not be, I gotta save the world, but it's, no, I'm just trying to do this to study for my bar exam, or to study for my LSAT and and get into law school. So yeah, notable NPC's goals, translating that into personality quirks, and how they relate to the player characters. Um, that's it for that day. Today's prompt for day 23 is a peerless player. A peerless player, that is someone unequaled, an unequaled player. So, if we were to rank it, this is the highest you can be. No one higher. And my friend Fry had a really good video on this over on his TikTok. I'll link it down in the description. And I'm kind of going to riff off his a bit. A peerless player, the concept, a peerless player may not, I'm not going to name names of who I think are peerless players, but because that's superfluous. And the reason why that's superfluous, I can't talk today. The reason why that doesn't really matter is just like kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You can slip and slide through that scale. Some days you're only as good as your last performance. You had a bad day, you had a bad day at work, you're off, you're sick, you're getting burned out on the game or something like that. So peerless players they come and go. You can slide in and out of it. But what ultimately I think what makes a peerless player is it's someone who wants the game to be successful. Someone who wants the game to succeed, who wants to tell a good story. Someone who, they may be the note taker of the game, who keeps the loose ends, forward of everyone's mind, who's keeping track if it's a mystery, keeping track of the leads you've investigated. It could be someone helping out with other characters with what options they might have. It could even be, someone who offers to help. Help other players or help the game master out. If the game master's struggling. There's been a lot about, online by some of my colleagues in this space of RPG video making. Yeah. It's about GMs delegating powers on things and how that can help shift the load. And on some level, I get it. But if a player wants to help out, that's accessible. But there's only so much you can delegate. Like, especially when you're running a game online, there's only so much you can delegate unless you're going to co-run a game with me. But then you're not a player. You're not a peerless player. You're a co-GM, and that's a different dynamic. That's not a player dynamic. That's a GM dynamic. So going back to peerless player, ultimately, just once again, it's people who want the game to succeed and are engaged in the story. They are engaged in the story of the other characters at the table that the other players are playing, and sharing the spotlight time. Allowing people to get, okay, this is this person's time. This storyline with GM has kind of concocted, like this scenario, this situation is for this character. It's let this character take the lead, and then it's this character, and that's where you get this peerless players who are okay with that, and it's sometimes it may feel like especially like when you play characters like I do a lot of the time, where it's you play a bit more of a specialized character. Like in the Star Wars game I played in, I was the pilot. You know, I took, you know, I kind of understood I was only going to use my piloting skills some of the time, but that also meant you have a distinct role, and GM rewarded me for it. I got to show myself off a lot because I was the pilot. And that's just a sign of a good GM. I'm not saying that I was a peerless player in that moment. I don't think I am. I'm a really bad player. I'm a really bad player. Being a player is hard. I'd rather be the GM some days. Being a player is hard. And because of that, the people who are able to go that little extra mile to help people out, that is awesome. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all want to roll dice, and we all want to tell a great story, and we all want to have a good time and have fun. Anyway, that's my 2 cents for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed the twofer. Tell me what your thoughts are. I want to hear your stories. Leave me a comment, make me a video response. I want to hear your stories. Tell me what your thoughts are. I know I'm a very small niche out there on the internet, but I want to hear it. Have a good day, guys.